What up, guys? Welcome to the Son of Wonder. Deadpool Wolverine is out in theaters and currently crushing it in the box office, and everybody's loving it. So today we're going to be discussing all the spoilers. So let's conversation on this. Alright, guys, so Deadpool and Wolverine is here. I already did my spoiler-free review for it, and now we're going to be doing my spoiler review for it. I get to talk about all the specifics, the specific things that I loved, and maybe some specific things that I wasn't as crazy about, so let's just go ahead and get into it. First thing I want to talk about is the opening sequence. The opening sequence is probably one of my favorite opening sequences of any Marvel movie, ever, period. Possibly any superhero movie. It starts off with, Deadpool breaking the fourth wall, commenting on recent events that led up to the making of the movie, and then he says, I know everybody's worried about us, ruining the legacy of Logan, of the movie Logan, right? I know everybody's worried about us upholding the legacy, so here's what we're going to do. We're not going to. He digs up Logan's corpse from Logan's grave at the end of the Logan movie. Spoilers if you haven't seen that movie, but it's been around a while. And then he has a conversation with Logan's adamantium skeleton. It's just a skeleton that's left. There's nothing else. He has a conversation with the skeleton, then some TVA, Time Variance Authority from the Marvel show Loki. Then some TVA agents show up. And then he proceeds to use Logan's adamantium skeleton to take out all of these TVA agents while dancing to NSYNC's Bye Bye Bye. That is a real thing that happens at the beginning of this movie, and Deadpool is one of the few characters that you could do that with, and it be one of the best things you've ever seen in your entire life. Like, legitimately, I've seen the movie twice now, and both times, it is just one of the most fun sequences I've ever seen in a superhero film. And probably one of the best ways I've ever seen a superhero film open. Like, it was the best idea they could have had. It's such a funny and purposefully, oh my gosh, you're using Logan's bones to destroy all these people, tossing around his skeleton, using the adamantium spine and skull to hit the TVA agents with. It's terrible, but it's terrible on purpose, and that makes it hilarious. So, this, again, intro is one of the best intros to a Marvel movie ever. But that's the opening sequence. Then we go back in time to kind of explain why we're even in this whole situation, why Deadpool is in Logan's universe, digging up Logan's corpse. And we go back to Deadpool, Wade Wilson, having a job interview with Happy Hogan from the Iron Man movies, funnily enough. And I thought that was a really fun side cameo. It's funny, out of all the cameos in this movie, Happy's probably the one that I actually expected the least. I guess just because he's not that big of a character, you don't really expect a smaller character to make a cameo in a movie like this, but I thought it was just a really fun and clever cameo in this movie. But basically, Wade Wilson / Deadpool wants to join the Avengers, but he is rejected by Happy because Happy realizes that Deadpool is just wanting to join the Avengers because he wants to join the Avengers. There's not a whole lot of selflessness involved in Deadpool's decision-making process. And, the whole journey of Deadpool in this movie is he wants to be I feel like what his real journey is he wants to be a real hero, not really an anti-hero. And I actually like that, especially by the time you get to the end of the movie. I actually like that idea of an anti-hero wanting to become a full-fledged good guy. He wants to have feel a genuine sense of importance in a heroic sort of way, not just where he is the jokey guy all the time or the irreverent guy all the time. He wants to actually mean something as a good guy the same way Wolverine does, and I like how they play through that throughout the movie. He goes in for a job interview. Happy doesn't accept him into the Avengers, obviously, but Happy does encourage him to find another way to feel like he matters. And Happy actually says a really good line in this scene that I thought was a really well-written, sort of lesson-type virtuous line, where he's the Avengers don't help people because they need it. The Avengers help people because the people need the Avengers to help them. They help people because other people need them. I'm paraphrasing, but it's something to that effect. And I actually really like that idea. And it points out the Avengers' selflessness and why they're real heroes. is because they don't do it for the attention or for the, the accolades that they receive after they save the world. They do it because the world needs saving. That's just a really cool lesson, especially to establish in a Deadpool movie of all films. But you fast forward 6 years after the job interview, and Wade Wilson is working as a car salesman. And then he is kidnapped by the TVA. And this is where all of the hijinks ensue. And then we're introduced, or we're introducing Deadpool, like, officially this time, to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this is where I want to comment on, like, this movie is freaking hilarious. Like, it is just, like, and honestly, like, even on a second viewing, you kind of realize how, like, clever the funny writing is. Because with a comedy, you do have to be clever for the jokes to actually land. And, it's not that there is certainly no shortage of crass humor that probably doesn't take a lot of thought to write. But still, there's also a ton of jokes that are just really well thought out and cleverly written. Ryan Reynolds is really good at his job. That's just the simple matter. Like, he's just funny anyway, and when you apply that to a superhero movie, especially a character like Deadpool, it's just hilarious. And Ryan Reynolds just brings that into live action perfectly. Like, he embodies the character of Deadpool wholesale. But we meet this guy, Mr. Paradox, and he's like one of the TVA bosses, or whatever you want to call him. And obviously the TVA was first introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in Loki. I liked the show Loki, so I didn't really have a problem with them being in the movie. And I think that it was, if you're going to bring Deadpool and Wolverine into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the TVA, I suppose, is one of the only ways you can do that with it making some semblance of sense. I'm not going to say it makes complete sense because, in all honesty, the MCU multiverse rules are really shaky, and you actually kind of only complicate things with this movie. I think the best movie so far that's handled the multiverse in the most, in a way that actually is more solid, ironically, I think, is Across the Spider-Verse. I think that movie really explains, the Spider-Verse really well, sticks to its guns, instead of, the MCU where they're just, shifting all the time, adding new things, and it just gets more and more complicated. And in general, I don't have a problem with the multiverse, because I think there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with the multiverse. I just, when it gets so muddled and you overstuff it so much with so much information, that's when you start annoying fans and annoying the audience, because it just feels like there's too much to keep up with. And there's even a little bit of that in this movie. But obviously, it doesn't detract from the enjoyment or the entertainment value. So, Mr. Paradox says that Deadpool's universe is dying because it's lost its anchor being, which is this new thing that Deadpool and Wolverine has, another new multiverse rule that it's added, where if there is there's a being so important to a certain universe that if they die, that universe starts to die with said being. And in Deadpool's case, Deadpool's universe's anchor being was Wolverine. The Logan of the Fox X-Men movies, the one that died in Logan. And so, Deadpool's universe is dying, but Mr. Paradox says that it's going to take a long time to die. But this is where you realize that Mr. Paradox is definitely a bad guy. What's funny is that in the marketing for this movie, which was spectacular, by the way, best marketing I've seen for a film ever, but in the marketing for this movie, they never really even implied that Mr. Paradox is a villain. He just seems like a goofy side character. So it was funny to me watching this movie and kind of realizing that, oh, he's a villain as well. So it's kind of interesting. As a villain, he's neither here nor there. He's funny. He makes you laugh. I don't think any of the villains in this movie are particularly, memorable or exciting. I think they do their job. And we'll get to the other villain in the movie later. But Mr. Paradox reveals that he just wants to go ahead and destroy Deadpool's universe because he doesn't want to wait around for it to die. He doesn't want to waste, he says it's going to take 1,000 years. He doesn't want to waste 1,000 years of his life monitoring the universe until it dies. He just wants to get it over with. And apparently he's not working with the rest of the TVA. He's kind of his own branch of the TVA that he's established for himself to carry out his own operations. And so after Deadpool realizes what's really going on, he thinks that he needs to find another Logan to become the new anchor being for Deadpool's universe, so all of Deadpool's friends and family can live. And, well, I guess Deadpool doesn't have any family. Friends, all of Deadpool's friends can live and not die with Deadpool's universe. So, Deadpool goes to find a bunch of other Wolverines, or tries to find another Wolverine. That's where we get Deadpool desecrating the grave of Logan. After that fails and he destroys all the TVA agents, he goes to a bunch of other universes. And this is like the fun part. This is where we get to the really good stuff. We get to see a bunch of different versions of Wolverine. And I wasn't familiar with some of the comic versions of Wolverine, but there were a couple, though, that I did recognize and were really awesome. The first one was Short Wolverine. It was a version of, like, the version of Wolverine from the comics that's supposed to be, like, 5'4" or something like that. Like, Wolverine in the comics is supposed to be really short, and apparently one of the criticisms of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine over the years is that he's too tall, because I think he's, like, 6'2". And so it's Hugh Jackman, but they, like, used some CGI to make him look like way shorter, and Deadpool makes fun of him, and it's hilarious, and it's funnier because it's so evidently CGI. Like, it doesn't look good, but it's like, it's funnier because of that. And then we see a bunch of different other versions, a lot of deep comic Easter eggs. We also see a version of Wolverine that fought the Hulk in his, like, brown and yellow suit. That was really awesome to see, and so we do get a quick cameo from Hulk in this movie, where Hulk shows up right behind Deadpool and then, like, knocks Deadpool into a tree, and then that's it. So I thought that was awesome. There were rumors before the movie came out that Wolverine might actually fight the Hulk in the movie, but we only really get, like, a cameo, like a very small cameo. You don't really ever see Hulk's face completely, but I still thought it was a really fun scene in the film. But the other big Wolverine moment to talk about in this montage of him going to different universes, finding different Wolverines, is you get to see Henry Cavill as a version of Wolverine, which is just awesome. But what's funny to me is that there have been a lot of different Wolverine fan casts over the years. Daniel Radcliffe, Keanu Reeves is my personal favorite. I desperately want Keanu Reeves to become Wolverine in the MCU. But Henry Cavill I never really heard a ton of talk about him becoming Wolverine. I guess that was a fan cast, but I didn't think it would have been a big enough fan cast for him to actually make a cameo in a film as Wolverine. That's funny to me that out of all the actors that have been fan cast, he was the one that they chose to actually be Wolverine. But it was hilarious. It was awesome to see Henry Cavill as Wolverine, and he probably would make a really good one if they ever decided to recast him. But honestly, especially after seeing this movie, I don't think you should ever recast Wolverine until Hugh Jackman has, like, become, like, 100 or something and passed away. Like, I think until Hugh Jackman physically cannot play Wolverine, he needs to stay Wolverine. Especially because of his performance in this movie. Just because it's so good and he's so Wolverine. It's probably Hugh's best performance as Wolverine. That's just my opinion, but I think... And honestly, the costume does so much. And so this is actually where we get to see the Wolverine from this movie. The one wearing the yellow outfit. And it's just like it plays in the trailer. Deadpool finds Wolverine in a bar, and he gets him to the TVA because Wolverine just kind of drinks himself unconscious. And it's hilarious because Deadpool realizes that Wolverine is wearing the yellow suit under his normal clothes. And Deadpool looks at the camera and goes, "That only took 20 freaking years." I love that moment so much because it's true. And then when he actually brings Hugh Jackman Wolverine in the yellow suit to the TVA, he says he's actually wearing a superhero costume, like he's not embarrassed to be in a superhero movie. And I love that he actually commented on that because it's true. Because so often, and they do this a lot with the supervillains, so often in these comic book movies, because of some sort of, like, reservations about, being too flamboyant with some of the costumes or whatever you want to call it. I mean, now some of them are a little bit, silly. Like, some of them take it a bit too far. But a lot of them are, if you're going to have Deadpool in his outfit, you definitely have Wolverine in his. It's just funny to me that so many of these producers, like, oh, that's too silly, we can't have that costume being there. When it's like one of the defining characteristics of the character is that character is that character because of their costume. And so it's just so annoying, and I'm glad that this movie finally rectified that, especially for Wolverine, because that costume does so much, like, as if Hugh Jackman wasn't already cemented in the role as Wolverine. him wearing the outfit in this movie, it's shocking how much that outfit really like, oh yeah, that is Wolverine. And he looks amazing in the suit. It's great. Then we realize that this version of Wolverine is actually not well regarded among any universe, especially his own. And we don't really know why yet. And then that's when Mr. Paradox prunes Deadpool and Wolverine, sending them to the Void. All that stuff was also established in Loki. They have like these weapons that can... It looks like they're disintegrating the people, but they're actually sending them to this plane of existence outside of time where a bunch of the random time branches that shouldn't exist, all the stuff from those time branches get dumped into this place called the Void. This is where we get our first fight between Deadpool and Wolverine because, you know, obviously they're just kind of mad at each other because it's Deadpool and Wolverine. And it's a phenomenal fight, and like the action in this movie is insane. It's probably some of the best action in any Marvel movie. The choreography is just really well put together, and it's exciting, it's fast-paced, and it looks great. It looks great on camera, and like props to Sean Levy for his direction of action in the film. You get some phenomenal moves in there from both Deadpool and Wolverine. Like there's one move where Wolverine tries to stab Deadpool, but then he retracts the claws to get out of like Deadpool's swords because he has the claws in like a bind. And Wolverine retracts the claws and then punches him and then shing and then tries to attack him again. I just love that like moves like that actually are well thought out and specific. They're awesome. But they fight, and then Deadpool calls timeout and says that it's possible because of the TVA's ability to do all whatnot with timelines. The TVA could fix whatever horrible thing Wolverine is known for in his universe. So Wolverine agrees to a temporary truce between the two of them, and that's when we get our first major cameo of the film, where this random guy in a hood shows up, and then a bunch of like bad guys and a bunch of these weird looking cars come to try and kidnap any, I suppose, new characters or people who have entered the Void. I don't really know why they were out and about in the first place. I guess that's their job, is to just search out any new people who have entered the Void and take them to who the main villain is in the movie, Cassandra Nova, who we'll get to later. But the first big cameo, he comes out of the hood and he takes the hood off, and it's Chris Evans. And at the time, you don't exactly know who Chris Evans is playing. And then... It's done so well. The joke is so good. Chris Evans is like getting ready to battle, and Deadpool's like, wait for it, he's gonna say the thing, and Deadpool thinks that he's gonna say Avengers Assemble because Deadpool thinks he's Captain America. And like Deadpool's like, he's gonna say it. And then Chris Evans goes, flame on! And then he like becomes the Human Torch and then flies up in the air, and it's the best setup joke. Because, like, ever since he became Captain America, it has kind of been a thing where, everybody knew it would be hilarious if they ever nodded to Chris Evans being both Human Torch and Captain America at different points in his career, like two different major Marvel characters. And so for this movie to finally acknowledge that and turn it into one of the best jokes in the film is just, it's so well executed, and it's just great. So Pyro is there, the supervillain Pyro. And Human Torch tries to, he like shoots his flames at Pyro, and then Pyro uses his fire powers to suck all of the flames and the fire energy out of Human Torch, and then comically, Human Torch just kind of falls out of the sky and hits a bunch of things on the way down and then lands on the ground. He's not dead yet, but he does get taken out rather comically and quickly. And in my spoiler-free review, when I said that I wasn't a big fan of how some of the cameos were treated in the movie, I think this was one of them. I love the way they introduced him, but it's all the stuff afterward, like with how he gets beat and how he gets treated as, like, you know, one of the characters afterward they're not the biggest fan of. I get that Deadpool is a comedy, so you're not really meant to expect any genuine seriousness from the cameos in the film, but still, I feel like probably a cameo like that should be treated with a little bit more respect and reverence. But if there's one thing you can count on with these Deadpool movies is for nothing to be treated with reverence. So Sabretooth also shows up in here. He's another cameo that I didn't love the way they treated him. They teased him in some of the marketing, and I was really excited to see the new fight between Wolverine and Sabretooth. Turned out not to really be a fight. Wolverine just kind of runs at Sabretooth and then cuts his head off. So there you go. But it does make for a very hilarious moment where Deadpool grabs Sabretooth's head and is like, "Behold your Queen Furiosa!" And it's like, he's like making fun of Mad Max. It's hysterical. But they use like a magnet to pull Wolverine, knocking him into Deadpool, attracting them both to the magnet, and then like some other object gets drawn to the magnet and then knocks both Deadpool and Wolverine out. And then Deadpool and Wolverine wake up in a cage as they're being driven to the supervillain's headquarters. Chris Evans, Johnny Storm / Human Torch, he's like 15 different names now, but he's with them as well. And one moment I did like that not a lot of other people have mentioned, but I really liked this detail, is that when Deadpool and Wolverine ask, like, where are they, and like, because they're not really sure, Johnny actually is able to explain to them where they are. You know, he says it's called the Void, but he mentions Reed. He mentions Reed Richards / Mr. Fantastic in this moment. He's like, Reed called it a metaphysical wasteland or junkyard or something like that. But I just liked that nod to Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. And I thought it was actually like a good sense of world building, that if this version of Johnny Storm is the one from the 2008 Fantastic Four movies, or if it's, you know, just a variant of the 2008 Fantastic Four movies, whatever, he also had a Reed Richards / Mr. Fantastic. And because Mr. Fantastic explored and has studied all the different parts of the Marvel Universe, like the Negative Zone and like the center of the Earth, and because the Fantastic Four are known as explorers, like scientific explorers, basically. That's how they got their powers in the first place. So I liked that one line and that piece of world building that they added in there. They didn't have to have any helpful exposition come from Human Torch, but they did. And I thought that was a really fun detail. But then they go to see the supervillain, and we get to see Cassandra Nova, and I wish I could talk about all the jokes that I loved in here, but they're too numerous. I laughed at so many of them in this movie, but there are some amazing jokes in this whole scene with Cassandra. But this is where we get the moment where Human Torch is killed. And it's very unceremoniously. Deadpool tells Cassandra that apparently Johnny said all these horrible things about her. And Johnny's like, no, I didn't say any of those things. I didn't say any of those things. He's lying. He's trying to save his own skin. And then Cassandra just takes away all of Johnny's skin. And then the rest of him just falls to the ground, very unceremoniously killed. And, you know, played for laughs. I'm not the biggest fan of it. Again, just because I feel like I wish they would have kept him in the movie, had him be another side character, not kill him off so whatever. But it still makes you laugh, mainly just because of Deadpool's reaction. He's like, do you know what he was doing to the budget? My favorite part about it is Wolverine's reaction, because one of the best parts about the way Hugh Jackman plays Wolverine in this movie is Wolverine is, weirdly enough, like the only normal person in the whole film. Like, all of Wolverine's reactions to every single crazy, horrible thing that happens in the movie are like a very normal person's reaction to such things. He's like, you just got Johnny killed. It's like, you literally just killed that guy with your words, Deadpool. And I love, it's nice to have an anchor being, if you will. It's nice to have an anchor in this movie to some semblance of reality, where Wolverine's the only guy. And it makes sense because Wolverine's always serious. He always takes things as they are. And yeah, Deadpool basically got Johnny killed. Then you kind of get more of a feel for Cassandra Nova as a villain. She is Charles Xavier's sister. And because of that, it kind of already establishes some semblance of familiarity that the audience can have with this villain. So that's helpful. And I think the actress, I think her name is Emma Corrin, who plays Cassandra, I think she did a good job. I like that this villain has a personality. And the personality is pretty consistent. It's just kind of like this careless, nonchalant, like, I'm so freaking powerful, I can do whatever I want sort of attitude. And it's consistent throughout the movie. She never really loses her cool. She's always confident that she's going to win because of how powerful she is. And yeah, entertaining personality. So I think it's a good enough villain. Again, not super memorable, not like one of the best Marvel villains ever, but I do think good enough. Like, it's an obstacle for the film. That's basically what all of the antagonists are for this movie, are obstacles. And so Cassandra calls Alioth from the Loki series, like the big smoke monster that is tasked with destroying all the new things that enter the void. She calls Alioth to come and take out Deadpool and Wolverine, and Deadpool and Wolverine escape on this rocket robot leg. I don't know what that's supposed to be, but somehow they use the leg to kind of jet out of there and away. But before that, while they were in the cage, Johnny had told Deadpool Wolverine about this resistance that Johnny was a part of, like a group of different people who were fighting against Cassandra, because Cassandra kind of has like a bunch of power in the void because she is so powerful. She has like telekinesis that's like on an insane level of power. And so she's just able to move whatever the mess she wants. And that would be one of my criticisms of her as a villain, is because she's a bit too powerful. Like, if you're just able to remove all a person's skin in like the blink of an eye. And later it's mentioned that she killed like a variant of Magneto. And if you've seen Magneto at all from anything, it's like, Magneto? Are you for real? Like, he's like one of the most powerful mutants. Like, how do you just kill Magneto no problem? And I get that she's Charles' sister, so naturally she's going to be pretty powerful, but like that powerful? Like, that's a bit of a stretch. So Deadpool and Wolverine, their next move is to find this resistance that Johnny was talking about. See if they can help them get out of the void. And so it's throughout all this that we get more sort of character building, like see a little bit more of the relationship. And I mentioned in my spoiler-free review that I didn't like the way that it kind of just stayed the same throughout the whole movie, where Deadpool and Wolverine just basically hate each other the whole time until the end. And upon a second viewing, I kind of still feel the same way about it. It's like, it doesn't really feel like their relationship grows. They get to know each other better, but they still, like, pretty consistently hate each other throughout the whole film until the end, when they all of a sudden start liking each other. I wish that was done a little bit better, but I will say, watching it a second time, it didn't really detract from my enjoyment. The banter was still really funny, and I did like the character moments that we did get. But then we meet Nice Pull, who is a variant of Deadpool, and it's hilarious because one of his first lines is, "I identify as a feminist," and I love that because it just makes fun of all of the woke stuff. There's a lot of moments in this movie that actually make fun of a lot of the woke stuff that's been put in modern movies recently, and that's like probably one of the biggest props I can give to this film. And the thing that encourages me about the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and possibly the part of this movie that has the most impact on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is the fact that they're willing to have their own film make fun of their own universe. Like, even earlier in the movie, when Wolverine first showed up, Deadpool's like, "Welcome to the MCU, by the way, you're joining at a bit of a low point." Like, they flat out say multiple times in the movie, like, yeah, Marvel has not had the best run. A lot of their projects have just been kind of terrible. And they're willing to admit that. So again, like, Kevin Feige would have had to watch this movie and approve all of the jokes made about their not great run. So that gives me some level of hope that means that their attitude has changed and that they realize that they've messed up and that their mindset is to course correct. And with the recent announcement that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back as Dr. Doom for the next Avengers movie, Avengers Doomsday, it would seem as though they are in course-correct mindset, which is good. But they meet Nice Pull, and it's just hilarious. Ryan Reynolds playing this kinder version of Deadpool. And there's a phenomenal line where he's like, "It costs nothing to be kind," and then Wolverine's just like, "Shutting the mess up is also free." like Hugh Jackman is able to deliver dry humor in this movie like nobody's business. Like, again, him being the normal, grounded person of the film just plays great. This is also where we meet the dog version of, like, Dogpool, and, you know, all that stuff is as funny as you'd expect it to be. But Nice Pull gives Deadpool and Wolverine his car because he's Nice Pull, and they leave in the car trying to find the resistance. And then, amidst conversation, Wolverine realizes that Deadpool isn't exactly sure whether or not the TVA can fix the problems in Wolverine's universe. And this is where Wolverine gets really ticked off and just lays into Deadpool like hard, talking about how much of an idiot he is, how he's one of the worst goofballs that he's ever met in his life, and that's saying something because Wolverine's lived over 200 years. And like the way all of his rant is delivered and written is just the best, because you really get the sense that, like, Wolverine is just beyond ticked right now. Like, he's ticked off at literally everyone in this movie, and that's exactly how Wolverine is supposed to be from the comics. Like, he is putting up with nobody's bull mess, absolutely nobody's bull mess, and that is just the best. And Hugh Jackman is a perfect fit, and does a phenomenal acting job for such a role as that kind of character who's just done with everyone. Done with everybody. But then Deadpool, he's ticked off at Wolverine for saying all those things, so then he fights Wolverine, and they have this fight in the car. And it's really funny, and there's a song playing, and they're like kicking each other out of the car and jumping back in. Like it's just really well put together and fun. But then I don't know if they just knocked each other out or fell asleep while fighting, but somehow they're unconscious, and Deadpool's like wrapped in all the seatbelts. And it seems like once again Wolverine beat Deadpool in the fight. He beat Deadpool in the first fight. And that's what I also love, is that they do establish that Wolverine versus Deadpool, it's Wolverine all day, baby. And that's who I was rooting for in the Wolverine versus Deadpool category of the film. And they definitely established that Wolverine pretty much kicks Deadpool's butt. Deadpool definitely gives Wolverine a run for his money, but Wolverine comes out on top all the time. Wolverine's probably my favorite mutant. Of all the X-Men, he's probably my favorite one. But then we get some mysterious person. They drive the car to a nearby base of operations, whatever you want to call it. Deadpool wakes up, and Wolverine's already woken up. They haven't met any of the people who brought them there yet. And then sure enough, Jennifer Gardner shows up as Elektra from the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. And I actually have seen that film, and, I can appreciate it for it being unapologetically a comic book movie, but I think it's hilarious. It was rumored that she was going to be in it for a while before, so I wasn't super surprised to see her. But her being in the movie is still really fun. But then we get Wesley Snipes' Blade. He enters the chat, and fun fact, I know you guys might be surprised at this quite a bit, but I have not seen the Wesley Snipes Blade movies. But it didn't honestly matter, because I knew about the Wesley Snipes Blade movies. I knew how well regarded at least the first two were. So I knew a lot about the whole thing for me to still be surprised, because I didn't really expect him to show up, especially since MCU is trying to do that new Blade movie. But I think that was honestly the funniest part for me, is because they've had such trouble making the new Blade film, the fact that he showed up in this movie is freaking hysterical. And obviously there are just so many good lines. This whole scene is hilarious. And then, this might be my favorite cameo of the whole movie. We get Channing Tatum walks in. You see a playing card floating in the air, and then Channing Tatum walks in as a comic-accurate Gambit. And what's hilarious about that, if you don't know, Channing Tatum has been trying to play Gambit in his own film for a very long time now. And apparently when Fox... I thought the project had been scrapped for far longer now, but apparently they had been trying to get it made all the way up until Disney bought Fox, and then that's when it was just canned. Completely. But we get Channing Tatum as Gambit in this movie, and when I had heard that, like years ago I had heard that they were trying to do that, I thought it was a terrible idea. Gambit is my second favorite mutant. Wolverine and Gambit are my top two. Wolverine's my favorite, but Gambit is my second favorite. I love Gambit, the Cajun accent. Gambit's like one of the coolest superheroes ever. Playing cards, all of it, the staff. And when I heard that Channing Tatum... Now, in all fairness, I haven't really seen Channing Tatum, I don't think, in a film. Now that I think about it, I don't think I've seen Channing Tatum in a movie. But I just knew his reputation for, at least formally, I don't know if it's still his reputation, but formally, I just knew his reputation for not being the best actor. But Channing Tatum walks in the room, and he looks like Gambit from the comics. He's got straight up the full suit. He's got the playing cards. And honestly, I actually ended up really liking Channing Tatum as Gambit. And it's probably just because they went full comic accurate with it. And that's my issue with so many different interpretations of all these different comic book characters, is that they're not treated as comic accurate. Like, the directors will try to put a new spin on the character and change them from the comics, this, that, and the other thing. This is a straight up comic accurate Gambit. And I'm not saying that Channing Tatum looks great in the suit, but he does do the Cajun, / French accent, and it's, really thick. And Deadpool even makes a comment about it. He's like, who is your dialect coach? The Minions? The whole scene is hysterical, and Gambit is hilarious. But I actually really liked that they were that comic accurate with the character. And he keeps making comments about he never got his chance. Like, Elektra and Blade mentioned, like, all the people that we didn't get to save. And then Gambit's like, or wanted to save. Like, all these different comments that he's making about never getting his movie are just hysterical. But also, we have X-23 come back in here from Logan. She was featured in some of the marketing, so you already knew she was going to be in it if you had seen like the most recent trailer before the film came out. But yeah, it makes sense that she's in here from Logan. I think her character serves as a really nice person to kind of make Wolverine realize who he really is. The fact that he is a hero. I like the way they did the whole father-daughter relationship, how it's not the same Wolverine, but she knows that he is a good person at heart, and she convinces him of that. And I really appreciate the story that they tried to tell with her character in relation to this variant of Wolverine. But Deadpool convinces them all to go and just straight up attack Cassandra. Try to defeat her and try to help Deadpool and Wolverine get back home. And basically, all of the different cameos, Elektra, Blade, and Gambit, their motivation is, we never got an ending to our universes. Apparently the TVA just knocked on all of their doors and pruned them, so they ended up in the void. And all of it, especially upon second viewing, it does feel like it's all kind of a commentary on how their respective films were, their universes were cut short. Like the films that they got to be in, a lot of them, like in Gambit's case, it didn't even happen. All of the different studio troubles that have occurred and how some of their movies weren't all that well received. Like, they get to finish their stories in this film, and that's kind of what their entrance into the movie, or their presence in the movie in general, that's what it's all about, is them getting to have a finale, them getting to have an end to their story. And I think that's a cool kind of meta commentary sort of way to bring them into the film. And especially in The Void, there's so much opportunity for so many things to be there that they didn't actually go as crazy as I wanted them to. I thought there were going to be even more cameos that ended up happening in the movie, but when all these people show up, that's pretty much the end of the cameos until maybe you like count some later toward the end, like the very end. But I like all of these cameos. I think they serve for hilarious moments. I think they serve for really awesome moments, as we'll get to later. But then we get a really serious scene between Wolverine and X-23, and it's just like I said before, where X-23 tries to remind this version of Wolverine that he is a hero. They reveal more of this Wolverine's backstory, where he talks about how apparently in his world he never really wanted to be an official part of the X-Men. Like, they give this version of Wolverine a really cool reason for even wanting to wear the yellow suit. And that's something that they didn't have to do. The writers didn't have to give this reason, but it's actually a really cool reason for wearing it. And it delivers it in a way that like makes sense for this really like grumpy, serious person to be wearing a very bright yellow suit, like superhero costume. And it actually gives a very serious reason for him wearing it. Like, again, he never wanted to join the X-Men officially, so he kind of went off on his own. He was at a bar somewhere getting drunk, as usual for Wolverine. And that's when some humans came and took all the X-Men out. And that's not really the most complex or, like, deep backstory ever. It's a little bit simple. It gets a little bit more complex when more stuff is revealed later. But as of, like, this point in the movie, it's pretty, like, okay, he was just out getting drunk and then the X-Men died. Like, that's not insanely well thought out, but, you know, whatever. But him wearing the yellow suit, the reason that he wears it is to remind him of the X-Men. Because apparently, like, Storm, Beast, and Cyclops all really wanted Logan to wear the suit, but he just never did because he never wanted to make them think that he wanted to be a part of the team. But after they died, he chose to wear the suit to remind him of his friends, of the X-Men in general. And I think that part of the story is well thought out, and it gives a really cool, serious reason for him wearing the suit. But he still kind of feels down on his luck, and again, X-23 just kind of tries to convince him that he is a hero, that he always is there doing the right thing when it counts. He doesn't want to go with them to fight Cassandra, but he knows that he needs to. And then we actually get them riding to Cassandra's base in the same car that Deadpool and Wolverine fought in before. And this is where we get a phenomenal line where Wesley Snipes' Blade grabs a rocket launcher, gets ready to shoot the doors or the entrance to the base, which is just It's like a dead Ant-Man, so it's his hands, or a dead Giant Man. And that was featured in the trailers. Like, Cassandra's headquarters is just a really big dead Ant-Man. It's like his skeleton. And so Blade gets a rocket launcher to shoot the entrance, and apparently that rocket launcher belonged to a version of the Punisher, and Deadpool makes a comment about, like, which Punisher? There's been, like, a bunch. And then Blade goes, there's only one Blade. There's only ever gonna be one Blade. And then Deadpool just looks at the camera, and I thought it was freaking hysterical that they actually made a meta line like that for this movie to comment on the fact that they've been having such trouble with this new Blade film, and that it probably is never going to happen. Like, that will probably continue to be true. Like, Wesley Snipes is going to be the only Blade, because it does not seem like this Blade movie will ever be made, even though they announced it like 5 years ago. So that was probably also one of the funniest lines in the whole movie, is Wesley Snipes being like, yeah, I'm the only Blade, and it's going to stay that way. And so they burst into the base. Blade fires the rocket launcher, and they burst into the base. And from this moment, it's just pure awesome. Like, you see Elektra, Blade, Deadpool, and Gambit all get out of the car. They're all, like, comic accurate for the most part. And then Wolverine gets out of the trunk. So he did come with them. X-23 is there as well. And they're all getting ready to fight, like, Cassandra's henchmen, which some of them are known mutant villains. Like, you got a version of Juggernaut there. You got a character called Azazel. He was featured in X-Men First Class. You got Ray Park as Toad as well, which that was pretty cool. He was Toad in the first X-Men movie. So it's fun getting to see these heroes fight these X-Men villains. And so the battle ensues, and I think the fight is really cool. Each of our, like, cameo characters get a moment to shine, which is awesome. They give... This is what I'm saying, like, I was shocked at how much I liked Channing Tatum as Gambit. Maybe it was just because they gave him such a comic-accurate design. And even, like, he had, like, the purple energy staff. He did, like, the stuff with the cards where he would, like, spread out the deck and then, like, throw them at a bunch of different dudes and they all blow up. Like, everything about his character in this movie feels accurate to the OG comic version of Gambit, and that is what I love. And honestly, I'm kind of Team Tatum now. Like, I am shocked that I'm even saying that, but if they did decide to make that Channing Tatum Gambit movie, I'd be on board. But we also get a fight between Wesley Snipes' Blade and Azazel, who's basically just Red Nightcrawler. He could teleport. And that's a really cool idea, like, seeing those two characters fight's pretty awesome. And so, yeah, just the whole idea, concept in general, the sequence, it's really enjoyable. But Wolverine and Deadpool get out of there pretty quickly, and they go to fight Cassandra. Well, I say fight, not really. Cassandra very easily, like, just throws Deadpool off to the side and then tries to get inside Wolverine's mind. She's, like, talking to him inside of Wolverine's head. And this is where it's revealed fully what happened with Wolverine in his past. After the X-Men were killed by the humans, Wolverine went on, like, a berserker rampage, and apparently didn't just kill the bad people that killed the X-Men, he also apparently killed some people that seemed to be innocent. And so this is like the main source of Wolverine's trauma, or this version of Wolverine anyway, is his guilt over the crazy violent things that he did in reaction to the X-Men dying. And so that, I think that is a very interesting way to take a variant of Wolverine's story. And I think it works for what they did. I think they establish a very clear redemption arc for this specific Wolverine, because, you know, throughout the multiverse he's apparently known as the worst one. And worse in terms of, like, as far as moral character, obviously. He's a boss when it comes to fighting, just like all the other Wolverines. But I love the story that they take this version of Wolverine on. And what's interesting to me is that even though it's not the same Wolverine that we see in the main Fox X-Men movies, he still has that same feeling of, I will still do the right thing, even if I hate it. I am still committed to saving my friends, even if I'm super grumpy about it and look like I don't give a crap sometimes. This is mainly exemplified in when, like, you know, Cassandra's basically doing the classic bad guy thing. It's like, I can help you, I can remove your guilt if you just let me help you. I can take care of you, I've got you. And then Wolverine's like, no, I've got you. And X-23 had killed Juggernaut, taken his helmet, thrown it up to where, you know, Wolverine, Cassandra, and Deadpool were at. And Deadpool grabbed the helmet and put it on Cassandra while Cassandra's trying to mess with Wolverine inside of his own mind. And so they're about to kill her when her powers have been neutralized because she's got the helmet on, so it's like it's blocked all of the powers she could do. I guess they're all related to her mind. Like she can't do telekinesis while she has her powers, nor can she heal herself. So that's not really established beforehand, but they just kind of establish it in the moment. It's like, okay. Seems a little bit arbitrary, but whatever. And so Wolverine's like about to kill her, and then Pyro comes up from behind and shoots her. And then Wolverine just knocks out Pyro really fast, and he says not everyone gets a speech, because Pyro starts talking about how annoying Cassandra is. It was hilarious. But Wolverine has probably what might be my favorite Wolverine moment in the movie, where he's looking at Cassandra dying, and even though he was really ready to kill her like 5 seconds earlier, in the moment, like, he just doesn't want to let her die. Like, she's about to die from the bullet wounds, and he doesn't want to let that happen. And his reasoning is basically, she's Charles's sister, and I love this line. He says something basically to the effect of, he makes the argument, Charles, if he had known about you, if he had known what you've been through and where you are, and that you're a horrible villain, he would do everything in his power to save you. And I loved that this version of Wolverine, despite all the horrible things he's done, remembered all the lessons that Charles taught him. Because there's even a line earlier in the movie, or maybe it's in that moment, I forget exactly, but Wolverine basically says, like, despite everything, I'm wearing this yellow suit, which means that I'm an X-Man. And he basically says a line at some point during the film, I forget exactly where, but he says a line where he's like, I really want to be the guy that Charles thought I was. Or I was trying to prove that I could be the guy that Charles thought I was. Or that idea is brought up concerning him wanting that. And I feel like he proves that he is that guy when he decides to spare Cassandra's life in this moment. It's just really, I think it's a really poignant moment, because you got Deadpool, who's, you know, he's an anti-hero. He's kind of a hired gun. He kills for money. He is used to this kind of thing, but you really establish Wolverine in this moment as the real superhero, not the anti-hero, because he decides to spare Cassandra's life. And so she agrees to not kill them immediately once Deadpool removes the helmet and she can heal herself with her powers. And she basically, Elias comes, so I guess she called Elias somehow, or Elias just shows up. Elias just kind of shows up randomly. It doesn't really seem to be like, I don't know if Cassandra calls Elias or what, but he just is there. And so Elias shows up, and Cassandra, because Wolverine spared her life, agrees to send Wolverine and Deadpool back to Deadpool's home universe. And she reveals that she at some point killed a variant of Doctor Strange that had entered the Void, and she took his sling ring. So she uses the sling ring to open a portal, and Wolverine and Deadpool make a break for the portal before Elias comes to destroy them. And it's a really awesome sequence. Like, it just really stands out, because like a Jimmy Durant song starts playing. I think it's I'll Be Seeing You. And it like goes to slow motion of Wolverine, and you see Wolverine and Deadpool running toward the portal. Outside, Blade, Elektra, and Gambit are still, and X-23 are still fighting all of the henchmen. They basically make this scene sort of the send-off for the cameo characters as Elias comes. Which is funny because it's implied later that they might still be alive. But Elias comes for them, and they're fighting till the end, and they see Deadpool and Wolverine jump through the Strange portal, and you kind of like see on all of their faces like this collective like, yes, they did it. They made it. We did our jobs. The job is finished. We got our ending. And then Elias, the smoke, you know, comes over them, and you don't see them like disintegrate, so you don't really see exactly what their fate is. But it's just a really nice moment. Now, I do wish that they would have, like I said before, not killed Johnny and saved him for a moment like this where he could also kind of have that ending and say goodbye to the Marvel Universe as his specific version of the character like the others got to. I wish they would have allowed him more time, at least to get up to that moment in the movie. I think that would have been more impactful, but still, the moment that we got with these three cameo characters was a really just endearing and well-executed moment, just kind of final farewell. And so Wolverine and Deadpool jump through the portal. They go back to Deadpool's home universe, and then they try to make a break for Paradox, who is getting the Time Ripper machine. He has like this machine that can destroy whole universes, and he's getting that ready, about to destroy Deadpool's universe, and Deadpool and Wolverine are heading to stop that. But then Cassandra shows up, and because Pyro betrayed her, because Pyro was working for Paradox secretly, she just kind of kills Pyro, like very nonchalant, and just throws him back into the Void, because she comes through her own Doctor Strange portal. And again, I just feel like I feel like some of the cameos could have gotten better send-offs. Like I wish all of them had at least some semblance of like a serious like goodbye instead of some of the, the really quick or nonchalant kind of deaths that some of them got. But anyway, Cassandra shows up. She takes control of the Time Ripper machine and starts to destroy all different universes, so the Void is left and she can just rule the whole Void. And she apparently called what in the Void is known as the Deadpool Corps, so it's just a army of variants of Deadpool to keep Wolverine and Deadpool busy while she destroys all the universes. And so this is where we get a lot more funny moments, a lot more great action, because Nice Pull shows up at first and then there's like more fourth wall breaking. My favorite moment is Nice Pull shows up, then the rest of the Deadpool Corps arrive, and Deadpool's just like, can we please stop with this multiverse stuff? It's just been miss after miss after miss. And it's just him entirely roasting the MCU post-Endgame. And you even have Nice Pull come in with this comment like, I think it's been steadily good since Endgame. Like, the fact that they were able to cross that line, and Marvel let them cross that line and admit, like, we messed up, that gives me some semblance of confidence and hope for the future. But then Deadpool uses Nice Pull as a human shield to block the bullets. And they get behind a car, him, Wolverine, and Nice Pull. Nice Pull's like all torn up. Deadpool's like, how long does it take you to regenerate? And Nice Pull's like, regenerate? So he can't regenerate. So he's gonna die. And Wolverine's just like, you just killed this guy. And again, Wolverine has the normal human reaction to the horrible things that are happening. And then Deadpool uses Nice Pull as a shield again to get to the other side of the street while the Deadpool Corps is shooting at them. And then Nice Pull just gets obliterated. It's like all terrible, but in the funny sort of Deadpool way. And then Deadpool gets to the other side of the street, and Dogpull is there as well. And it's like one of the most hilarious moments in the whole movie is Wolverine is holding Dogpull, or Mary Poppins. And after Deadpool just got Nice Pull killed, Wolverine holds up Dogpull, so the Deadpool Corps sees the dog, and they're like, hold your fire, so they don't shoot at the dog, and Wolverine just walks across the street very casually holding the dog, just with this face of like, yeah, that's right, you'd never shoot a dog. It's just hilarious, and like a very well-executed moment of classic Wolverine humor. But then Deadpool grabs Nice Pull's golden guns, and Deadpool's like, you ready to do this? And Wolverine's like, I get to kill a ton of yous? I'm game. And so they walk out to the Madonna song, the Like a Prayer. And it's just that, again, all of the music choices in this movie are golden. And each time, it's not just the choices of music, it's like when they start the song, depending on what the scene is. I just think that's also really well done. Because they know the exact moments when the audience like is going to get hyped up for this next action sequence or whatever. So Deadpool and Wolverine walk out in the middle of the street, ready to battle. And then we get what might be the best part of the whole movie, Hugh Jackman, after 24 years of not wearing his costume at all. Hugh Jackman Wolverine pulls over the classic Wolverine mask for his final fight with the Deadpool Corps. And it looks awesome. And you see it and you're like, how on earth has Hugh Jackman not been put in that costume before with the mask? Like, how has this not happened? It just like, it comes full circle when you see it, because you're like, man, this should have literally been how it was from the word go. It should have been a no-brainer. Nobody should have ever objected to it. And so the fact that this has to be like, that this is such an insane moment that he's wearing his iconic comic book costume is pretty nuts when you consider, like, most other superheroes in DC and Marvel got to wear their iconic comic book costume in their first film. So the fact that it's taken Hugh Jackman, or this Hugh Jackman Wolverine, this long to wear his costume is insane. But I'm so glad he looks great in it. It's iconographically, it is phenomenal looking. But then Wolverine and Deadpool just go at it. They destroy all of the Deadpool Corps, and they like get in a fight inside this bus, and then they jump out of the back of the bus, and there's like this one shot where they like, you know, it's slow motion, and Wolverine, he's like jumped out of the back of the bus with the glass shattering, and like he's got this like screaming face, but it's in the mask, and it just looks like it comes straight out of the comics or one of the many X-Men cartoons that I watched as a kid. It just looks perfect. And then of course Deadpool like trips and falls when he doesn't stick the landing, and it's hilarious. And I'm glad that they had Deadpool not stick the landing instead of Wolverine, and Wolverine stuck the landing because Wolverine's awesome. But then they go try and stop the Time Ripper. Now, I'm not even going to try to explain how or what exactly Deadpool and Wolverine do to stop the Time Ripper. It has something to do with matter and antimatter and this, that, and the other thing. I didn't like... There's so much exposition that is dumped from Mr. Paradox when he explains how they have to stop Cassandra from destroying all the universes. Because Paradox was just going to destroy Deadpool's universe. Cassandra's going to destroy every universe. And Paradox doesn't want that to happen. So he tells Wolverine and Deadpool how to stop the Time Ripper. But again, it's like, it's just a bunch of like... I've seen the movie twice, but still, it's like... Wait, what? What do they got to do? Something with matter? It's a little bit too convoluted. Bottom line is, they have to pull some energy out of this one pole and then pull another rope of energy out of this other pole and then kind of just like connect the two or something, and somehow that destroys the Time Ripper. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. What matters is the character moments. So Deadpool and Wolverine go to stop that. And Wolverine is basically like, it's okay, I'll be the one to do it. Because apparently how you have to stop this thing, it's going to destroy them. It's almost certainly going to destroy the person that has to pull the two things. And so Wolverine's like, it's okay, I'll be the one to do it. You still have a universe left to go to, Deadpool. I don't have anything. And again, I love the sacrifice play from Wolverine. I love that he's willing. It's a great redemption arc for this version of the character, knowing what we know about his past. And Deadpool's like, no, I'll do it. I lied to you. I wasn't fully honest about being able to fix your universe. I didn't exactly know whether we'd be able to or not. And Wolverine's like, no, you didn't lie. It was an educated wish. Wolverine goes into the room, and then Deadpool hits Wolverine over the head with a fire extinguisher and goes into the room himself and locks the door. So Deadpool is the one to make the sacrifice play. And I always love when the heroes have to make the sacrifice play in the film. I always think that is the perfect way to show, even as many times as it's been done, it's always the perfect way to show the superheroes, or the hero in general, their willingness, like how much of a good guy they are to put their life on the line to save, you know, whatever, the universe, their friends, their family, blah, blah, blah. I always love moments like that if they're executed properly, and I think this one is. And so Deadpool tries to pull the thing and get to the other thing. I wish I could be more descriptive, but again, I did not follow exactly what exactly is going on. Cassandra is accessing the Time Ripper. She's trying to destroy every universe. And in a room below Cassandra, Deadpool's trying to pull this power cord or whatever, and pull this other power cord and like kind of connect the two via himself in order for something to backfire on the Time Ripper. But he's not able to reach it. And then, you know, Wolverine's been like trying to bust through the locked metal door, and he's like actually busting through and bending it. And then after Deadpool can't reach the other one, Wolverine shows up out of nowhere. He was able to bust through the door, and he grabs Deadpool's arm and grabs the other thing and pulls it. And so like both of them are connecting the two things, causing it to backfire and destroy Cassandra. And it's like an extended moment because we get some callbacks to earlier points in the film. And like it gives a really nice character moment for both characters. It gives Wolverine his full redemption arc, showing that he is the hero that Charles thought he was, despite his own doubts about himself and his own, you know, horrible decisions in his past. And then we get a moment with Deadpool remembering that he still loves his girlfriend, who... That's like one of the main things in the movie, is that at the beginning of the movie, Deadpool broke up with his girlfriend Vanessa. And so in this moment, he's kind of remembering, like, I'm willing to save her. I'm willing to love her, even if she doesn't love me back. And again, that's like the true sacrificial moment for Deadpool. Is like, this whole movie he's wanted to matter. This whole movie he's wanted to be important for the universe and, you know, not just do things for himself. And it's this moment where he finally gets to do that and gets to be the character that he always wanted to be, the kind of like superhero he always wanted to be. And again, I love both of those moments. I think they're well executed. I don't know if they're as fleshed out as they should be in this movie, but again, I think it works overall. And so the machine destroys Cassandra. You think that Deadpool and Wolverine have died, and of course they don't. Of course they, walk out in front of everybody, and they're like, we're alive still. They're victorious, and the girl from the Loki TV show shows up. I'm trying to remember her name. Hunter B-15. That's her name. And she's kind of a cameo from the Loki TV show. She comes because she's like the leader of the TVA now, I guess, other than like, Loki himself being the quote-unquote god of stories, as he's now called, and he's like in the middle of like the giant tree of Yggdrasil or whatever, holding all the time branches together. But she's like the leader of the main TVA organization. She busts Paradox for kind of creating his own off-branch of the TVA to destroy the timelines that he wants destroyed. Then she reveals that somehow, because Deadpool and Wolverine saved all the different universes from Cassandra, that somehow healed Deadpool's universe, so it's not dying anymore. So good. I don't know how or what that means, but whatever. And so then Deadpool asks if the cameo characters from The Void, if their universes can somehow be saved. And Hunter B-15 basically says something to the effect of, I'll see what I can do. So they might not be dead. And we know X-23 isn't, because she shows up at the very end of this movie. And Deadpool also asks Hunter B-15 if she can somehow fix Wolverine's past in his own universe. And she basically says that if Wolverine didn't have the past that he did, he wouldn't be here now to save the rest of the universes. And it seems like Wolverine just kind of accepts that, and he's already accepted it. He's redeemed himself, and he's fine with moving forward, despite not being able to fix things in the actual past. And also a comment in here is made, I forget exactly what specific or comment or who says it, but there's an implication that Wolverine might show up in later projects. Like, there's an implication that he, like, I forget if Hunter B-15 says something to the effect of, you might be needed in the future. I think it's something like that. And Deadpool just, like, whispers to him, till you're 90, which is a reference to earlier when Deadpool was telling somebody else, he was like, Disney brought him back. They're going to make him do this till he's 90. So I really do hope, like, I want Hugh Jackman to be the MCU Wolverine now. Now, what's funny about all this multiverse mess is the Fox X-Men universe is seemingly saved in this movie. I thought this movie was going to destroy it, but it seems to actually have been rescued. So, Deadpool universe, the Fox X-Men universe, is still continuing. Like, it still exists. So, I don't know what that means for Deadpool and Wolverine actually entering the sacred timeline. We don't ever get an explanation for Deadpool seeing that footage of Thor holding him, crying near the beginning of the movie. Because when he's at the TVA and they're showing a bunch of clips from the MCU, apparently some point later down the line, Thor's like holding Deadpool and Thor's crying. And what's interesting is that it's repurposed footage from Thor Dark World when Thor's holding Loki. But you can tell that they changed Thor's face because his eye colors are different. Because this would have been after he lost his eye in Ragnarok, and he got the eye from Rocket in Infinity War. And you could see a scar. So the fact that, Sean Levy, Ryan Reynolds, when they were making this movie, the fact that they even thought to put that detail in there makes me think that it might have more of a purpose to it than just a quick gag to kind of forget about. I'm hoping so. A lot of people have theorized that it's going to be in Secret Wars, which would be insane to have Deadpool in Secret Wars. But Wolverine and Deadpool go to eat some shawarma. And Deadpool's like, fun fact, the Avengers actually discovered shawarma. And he asks Deadpool's like, will I see you around? And Wolverine's like, probably not. And Wolverine starts to walk away, and Deadpool's like, wait, you want to see my friends? You want me to introduce you to my friends? And Wolverine's like, sure. And Deadpool takes Wolverine back to his apartment, and he meets all of Deadpool's friends. And at the end, it's like, it's kind of funny for such a, like, insane multiverse, bringing all these universes together, things are happening very quickly, yada, yada, yada. The movie kind of ends on this note of like a classic, well, we made it in the end, and it just like the very cliche sort of, we're all sitting around the table with our friends talking and having fun and stuff. X-23 is there. Blade, Gambit, and Elektra aren't, but X-23 is there, was sitting with Wolverine. And you even have this moment where Wolverine tells Deadpool to talk to Vanessa. It's like that classic, like, well, they've broken up, but they're going to try to get back together, and the friend encourages the other friend to talk to the girl again. Like, it just is, it's funny that it ended on such a simple, cliche sort of note with all the craziness that has transpired before this. But Deadpool basically tries to start a conversation with Vanessa, and it hints that they might get their relationship back together. And basically even the message that is kind of presented at the end of the movie in his final narration is like, what really mattered was the friends we made along the way and saving our friends. It's just, again, the cliches of it I just thought was funny. It didn't really detract from the movie for me. I just thought it was kind of funny. Because I think that specific message in this movie's case, even though it is really cliche, and all the different things that were established with the Wolverine redemption arc and Deadpool being a hero, I think all of it tied together nicely by the end of the movie. And that's it. So, again, I think that this movie is super fun, super entertaining. I don't know if it hit the full potential that it could have on a story level. I think it actually could have gone crazier with the multiverse stuff. In some ways, it did feel a little bit restrained, as if they were kind of trying to not overdo it. And at the same time, they did do some stuff that I wasn't expecting. It's kind of hard to explain. Like, I thought, you could have Hulk actually be a part of the movie. I thought Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider might show up. Like, there was a bunch of other characters that I thought could show up, and Deadpool might end up destroying some of the most recent horrible MCU projects. And he did verbally. And, that's good enough. He verbally destroyed some of them. But, yeah, I really like the movie. Again, one of the best Marvel openings for any of their films ever, with the bye, destroying all the TVA agents with the Wolverine's adamantium skeleton. One of the best openings ever. So at the end of the day, I think this movie was a blast, and I think it's going to be remembered for that. And I really love the story that they told with Hugh Jackman Wolverine specifically. But I hope what this movie means for the MCU going forward and its impact on the MCU, I hope that impact is basically, this movie is acknowledging that the MCU has messed up and that we're going to fix some stuff. That's my hope. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if they actually make good on some of the implications they've made in this film, as well as like different announcements like the Robert Downey Jr. Doctor Doom thing. But hopefully, this movie is an acknowledgement of that. And also hopefully says that we're going to get back to some classic stories of heroes sacrificing themselves and redemption arcs and the way we used to do things. The good stories that used to be told, instead of like these modern ones where everybody's just perfect and they're all very arrogant, really, and the stories that basically mean nothing. It's just like, oh, this perfect person was always great. It's like, just get out of here with that. I'm hoping we're getting back to true to form, good lesson teaching narratives, kind of like the way they did with Wolverine in this one. But that is my spoiler review of Deadpool and Wolverine. Let me know what you guys thought about it down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a very blessed day. May the Lord be with you. May the Force be with you. Goodbye. And that's a wrap. I don't think you really should ever Hugh cast.